I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth.
Hey, y'all. We need your votes. Before we get into today's episode, our podcast has made it into the finals for Connect Savannah's Best of 2023. We were nominated as Best Local Podcast. I was nominated for Best Local Theater Director under the name John Taylor Timmons, and our theater where we filmed the podcast, the Savannah Underground, was nominated for Best Local Theater Production. It is an honor to be nominated, and it would help a lot if y'all went online and voted. You can vote daily. Yes, you can vote every single day. Go to connectsavannah.com to vote. The podcast is listed under the media category, and everything else is under arts and city life. Let's be the first paranormal podcast to win this category. I'll post a link in the description and on Facebook.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Patrick from the Paranormal Society of Savannah with us. So that's super exciting. We love having ghost hunters on the show. So Patrick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Patrick Welsh. My dad is a senior, so I am a junior. The lead founder and investigator of Paranormal Society of Savannah. Our headquarters is actually in Midway, Georgia, and we own a haunted coffee shop called Haunted Grounds Coffee because it is hauntingly good.
I love that. That's so funny. It's a great name.
We also are planning a Paranormal Fest, which we're calling Savannah Horror Fest, at the end of February 25th. We'll have some very special guests there, and we're looking forward and hope you all can make it out.
Absolutely. Yes, so we'll be there. We'll be representing Mark McCullough, who y'all know from some earlier episodes on the podcast. He's going to be there, so if you have ever wanted to meet Mark McCullough, that's a good place to do
absolutely.
it. And also, there's going to be all sorts of really fun guests. There's a paranormal clown performer?
Yeah, Zazel.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so lots of really interesting people.
We.
And if you didn't know, Chris hates clowns, so
Nice.
you know,
it's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a running joke. But as y'all know, when we have people who are paranormal investigators or if they are tour guides in Savannah, we love to ask people's favorite stories, either from their investigations or just favorite ghost stories of Savannah. So I guess I'll kick it off, Patrick. Do you have one in particular that maybe is your favorite experience that you've had from doing years of paranormal investigation?
Not really. The only one really that stands out, I mean, there's just so many, is we went to Troy, South Carolina, to Long Cane massacre site.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought it was a Native American massacre site, but we found out that is actually they massacred a bunch of settlers and just scalped them and left them there. And the activity that we got and the evidence was just beyond anything that we've ever gotten. Drums, screaming, of course, doing the Estes method. We had several people hear the same thing, separate locations, but that one stands out the most to me.
Interesting.
And how big a team did you take out there?
We have a very large team, but out into Long Cane Massacre, we took 6 of us. And we had 2 teams doing the Estes method, and the rest of us was doing EVP sessions and, of course, running the SLS cameras and things. And the cool thing about the SLS is we actually got what it looked like 2 people crawling on the ground up to us, and then another one on the side, like playing drums. And so that was really good. And then on our actual evidence, you can hear the drums in the background, like faintly away. Do
you have a place where you showcase your evidence?
We do. We have been holding back a lot of evidence.
Oh, sure.
Just, because for us, it's kind of a hobby.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That's understandable.
so we put out a little bit here and there, but now we've gotten to the point to where we're like, okay, this year we're really going to start pumping it out and let everybody enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's just a wonderful thing to see methods and methodology because, the Estes method is not that old. Many ghost hunters talk about it, but really to see it in action is an amazing thing.
It is.
And even more so, you're saying that you're just sitting down from a hunt, a series of hunts, yes?
Yeah.
Over the weekend?
Hunts. Yeah, me and the team, we went to Plains, Georgia. We stayed at the Plains Inn. Antique historic center. There's only 7 rooms, and it was built. It used to be part of a bank, and then it was a general store in the early 1900s, and then about the 1920s, 19 teens, they built a funeral home on the 2nd floor.
Oh my Lord!
Delightful.
They actually still have the pulley, and it still works to get the cadavers up and down. And one of the rooms was right next to it. Which was very active. So we had the whole 2nd floor to ourselves. There's only 7 rooms, and we rented all 7 rooms. We were able to just kind of have a run of a meal. Usually when you go to hotels, you got to be super quiet because of the guests and things. Well, this one here, we were able to do a full investigation. Wow. We also did the home where Jimmy Carter grew up as a boy from the 1950s, early 60s.
Actually, Radar went on that one.
Yes.
Yeah, she was with us.
Yeah, excellent.
She actually came up Saturday.
Right.
And so we got to investigate the Rylander house, but in Plains, Georgia, they don't call it the Rylander house; they call it the haunted house. So
love it.
Everywhere we went, we were like, "Where's the Rylander house?" And they're like, "What?" And we would say, the haunted house, and they would say, "Oh, we know where that is." So we teach paranormal classes.
Fantastic.
So we were able to do a paranormal investing, 101 class. They loved it, and then we took them on investigations, not only into Plains Inn, but also at the Rylander house. There was a special location that we went to called Three Bridges Road. I don't know if y'all heard of Three Bridges Road. That's
absolutely.
in Americus.
Yeah, Americus. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we got a lot of activity. We know there was, the young lady that was murdered and, tortured and whatnot for 2 days and then thrown over.
Yeah.
So we were out there trying to communicate. However, when we got out there was a young man that committed suicide out there. And he was only 19.
Oh.
So, and this was Friday night, and we were out there, and we were getting some pretty good evidence. And then we just really got too cold, and we had been all over the towns. So the next day, we did the class, and then we went to Andersonville. And, you got to be careful of those cemeteries because you just want to respect, everything's going on there, so you don't want to do anything wrong. But the funny thing is there were so many people out there just coming up to us going, hey, can you come over and check this out? So the coolest part was about the cemetery to me was the 6 raiders that were hung out there.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they were like the ringleaders.
Right.
We tried to find, where the gallows were, but we got there kind of late, and they were closing up within like an hour, so we only had a little bit of time. We were trying to hit every place. So when we came back, part of the team broke off, and Radar was one of them. We had them take our VIPs to the Rylander house and investigate while we went to a couple cemeteries right down the road from there. So when we finished there, we were going to go to a place. We had ate at a barbecue place in Oglethorpe, Georgia, called Oglethorpe Barbecue.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I called ahead. I'm like, do you have room for like 20, maybe 30 people? And she was like, when y'all coming? I said, well, we're actually in the parking lot. So, and she said, yeah, y'all come on. So we came in, and, the people in all those towns are just great. So then they all started telling us stories about in Montezuma called Two Churches Road.
Oh, Two Churches Road. I've heard that one as well, yeah.
So we were going to go out there, some of us, the little team that I had broke off to go out there. But something was telling us, no, we need to go back to Three Bridges Road. So we went by the hotel because our batteries were pretty much done. We wanted to pick up some batteries. And when we got there, there were like about 100 cars next to our hotel. So Sarah was like, one of our investigators, she's our senior case manager, was like, I'll go over and ask that couple what's going on. And we was like, yeah, let's do it. So she walked over, and then you saw her kind of take a step back, and then she come over. She said, y'all aren't going to believe this. That's the sister of the young man that committed suicide out there. Oh. And she is so glad that you guys are here. And she wants to know if she can come out, her and her husband, and try. And we was like, yes, absolutely.
Right.
How often does that happen? So it was like, wow, what are the chances of that actually happening?
I mean, that's paranormal in itself, you know?
So we gave them our phone number and said, give us a call. You know, when you want to head out, we're going to head out. About 5 minutes later, she called and said, hey, my brother wants to know if he can come. My sister wants to know if she can come. And our dad wants to know if he can come.
Oh, wow.
And we said, absolutely. They were a little upset because someone had went out there and spread a lot of false, information and stuff and threw it up on YouTube.
Right.
Of course, everybody knows that's a big no-no. And so when we talked to them, we asked, is it okay if we, film what's going on? By having them out there, when we started, it was just so emotional. There were so many people getting so emotional, and we were asking things. The coolest thing to me that we got from the investigation, as far as evidence, is we were doing the spirit box, and he said, if this is true and this happens, can you tell us what your nickname is that we call you? And it said Bug. And it just kept saying bug, bug, bug. And I said, I'm hearing bug. And the whole family was just started crying. And it was so cool.
That's amazing.
And so, but we got a lot of information like that. And what we found out was he was a huge paranormal investigator. He loved it. He went to Waverly Hills, they said.
Fascinating.
And was stuck there for 2 days. Because his car broke down and his phone died, so he was stuck up there for 2 days. But then he came back, and he was constantly going to Three Bridges Road and other places, 3 a.m. hanging out. And his sister said that he came home one night and just kind of wasn't the same. So they don't know if something may attached or whatnot. Who knows? And so we were able to give them some comfort and some answers. They asked some answers, and apparently the answers that we were getting were true. So when we left, when they showed up, they were very somber, very, how you skeptical.
Yeah, of course.
But they left and were just so happy that we were able to help them get some answers.
Absolutely.
What happened. And the answers that we were getting was, one of the questions, his sister and his dad kept asking is, did this person shoot you? And it said, yes, no, yes, no. And they were like, yes, no. Is it yes or is it no? I said, no, it's probably yes, they did, but no, they didn't actually pull the trigger because they think he may have been murdered. So, yeah, that was so interesting.
That is
to get
fascinating.
that kind of stuff. So, between that and we called it a night after that, went back to the Plains Inn and started doing these methods and stuff. Sure. So, yeah, it was great. It was a great weekend.
That's amazing. And to clarify, are you bringing people on excursions, or is it just the team?
No, it's basically just the team.
Okay.
A lot of times, a lot of the team members can't go. Well, we've kind of haven't been on a team investigation in a long time. Usually it's 4 of us, because you don't want as many as we had this weekend.
Right.
But everybody wanted to go, and it's kind of hard to say no, so we would split them up. Okay, you guys go to the Rylander house, you guys go here, so that, and then we'll switch up in an hour and a half. And that's how we are able to do it. So it works out, but we were actually going because there was some residents that asked us to come and put on a paranormal class.
Fantastic.
And so that was a lot of fun. The young lady that helped us get the Lions Club for us to use, and I want to thank them, is Jimmy Carter's niece.
Oh, wonderful.
And I said, oh, cool. I said, well, who's your dad? And she said, Billy Carter.
Of course, Billy Carter.
I was like,
that's
wow,
right.
So, and the Billy Beers everywhere.
And the Billy Beer.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's everywhere. So,
Yes.
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's fantastic.
The people were just awesome up there.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, it's fascinating that you guys were able to get that level of interaction. But it does say a lot, of how we've talked about when you go on investigations, it helps to have an object from that person or from the time period, or even better to have family members. So it's like,
that's outrageous. That's
right.
so incredible. And yeah, what an opportunity, because very rarely do you get that kind of direct,
Yeah.
emotional, spiritual connection. That's incredible. Tell us, how did you get started?
I got started at an early age. I was like about 5 or 6 years old. My grandpa was born in 1899, and he was 30 years older than my grandma. And I was born in Savannah. My dad, after Vietnam, got a job at the railroad. My grandfather worked at a railroad. Back then it was Seaboard, now it's CSX.
Right.
And they said, okay, we got a job for you, but you got to go to Columbia, South Carolina. So every other weekends, we would come back to Savannah, and we would stay with my grandpa. Well, my grandpa and my grandmother, they had probably 15 kids. So it's a large family. And I was staying with my grandfather because I liked hanging out with him and listening to all the stories. And one night I was woken up, and there was a man standing at the door, and it scared me because he was just really scary looking. And when he turned around, he had like these big holes in his back and everything. Oh. So the next morning, my grandpa was ready for coffee, and he was like, "Why are you so quiet?" And I said, "Who? You tried to scare me last night, you know?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, there was a man at my door." And he said, "What man?" Because it was just me, him, and my grandmother. And I said, "Well, he was a scary looking man." And he said, "Well, what did he look like?" So I described him with the curly mustache and everything. And he said, you just described my daddy. And I said, "Well, where is he?" And he said, "Well, he's been dead for 60 years. And I, a kid, I said, "Well, how'd he die?" And he said, "Well, my brother shot him 6 times in the back of the head and killed him because he was so mean."
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So he was very mean. They're from McRae, Georgia, Telfair County.
Sure.
So he was one of the meanest men in Telfair County. I think there was some books and excerpts everywhere around how mean he was, like showing up for church late.
So famously mean.
Yeah, he showed up for church like 3 minutes late or something, and then the preacher was like, if you can't get here on time, at least you're here. Well, he walked right up there and pistol whipped the preacher in front of everybody, and then he would make it a point to show up late at church, daring him to
comment again.
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, so and he drank a lot of moonshine,
Sure.
So he was,
Well, when your son shoots you 6 times in the back of the head,
Right.
that tells you something about the quality of,
of the relationship.
Yeah.
And I had never seen a picture of him until I was doing genealogies in my late 20s, early 30s, and someone showed me a picture, and
And that was him.
It just flashed back.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that was him. So, but then things like that. I mean, we've lived in places that were haunted that we didn't know. And I had a dog. I love horror movies, so I named him Cujo. He was a little pickapoo. And
That's so cute.
yeah, I was like 15, and he would do the slow walk thing and just stare at the walls and just growl at nothing.
Sure.
And this one day I was sitting at the desk, and I was looking, and he was doing this, and I used to throw stuff at him and tell him to stop because it would freak me out.
Oh, sure.
Well, then just out of nowhere, something picked him up and slung him and threw him into these bifold doors where we had our washer and dryer, and just slung him up there, and he took off and went running, and I took off outside.
Sure.
And I happened to be on restriction. My daddy's like, "Boy, what are you doing out here?" I said, "There's something in that apartment I've been telling y'all. I don't know what it is." He said, "Well, if you don't get back in there, I said, I will take the spanking."
Right.
I'm not going back in there. So, but yeah, a lot of places. I grew up in Georgetown, Windsor Forest in Georgetown.
Oh, sure.
When I was 6 years old, we moved back, by the way. And there was a lot of things that happened in the house in Carolina. But when we moved back, I grew up in Windsor Forest, but in Georgetown used to be big time, rice fields and everything.
Plantations, absolutely.
Everything out there.
Well, there's the old witch house out in Georgetown.
Yeah.
Chegou a melhor parte do podcast. É hora de provar a melhor Coca-Cola. A Coca-Cola sem açúcar. O sabor irresistível da Coca-Cola, sem açúcar e igualmente refrescante. Coca-Cola sem açúcar. A melhor escolha.
I think we might have touched on it before, but
We
Georgetown is an incredibly woefully haunted area because it was the unincorporated part of Savannah for so long, and so many bad things happened.
Yes.
Right.
Bad
Yes.
things. We come across the story in Georgetown that you hear repeated everywhere, which was when as the Civil War was approaching and the fear of embargo was happening, and a lot of the slaves, the concept of trying to feed slaves while there's an embargo going on, a lot of plantation owners turned to just killing them wholesale.
Yeah.
You know, just eliminating them. So you had all these stories about slaves being lined up and murdered, and oftentimes not with guns because they didn't want to waste the bullets in case the Union showed up. So they're macheteing, using hoes, using farming equipment, starving them out, drowning them. Out at Ebenezer Creek is the big drowning. You know, there's so many stories, and it was so prevalent that there came a time, it's like, are we hearing one story that's just being attributed to a bunch of places? But I remember when they were developing Georgetown, we went out, and there's a story of this witch house. They called it a witch house. It was just this house that was curiously in the woods. You know, it was just out there, and so we were trying to get to it before they tore it down because they built houses all over it. And that was one of the eeriest places to just walk around. You just had this notion that you're just walking over the dead. You're just walking over, you know, this bloody field. Yeah.
Yeah, we moved out there in 1982. And
so you were there while it was still very
in and out. You know, I just turned 50 in October, day before Halloween. So that's another reason why I love this stuff. And I just turned 50, and me and my buddies, there was nothing to do in Georgetown back then, right? They didn't have internet stuff. I mean, you had maybe Atari or something. So, and there was only one store to shop and go, and we would go there and play video games, but that was all there was to do. Well, down Grove Point Road, of course, was right?
Yeah.
Grove Point Plantation, but you could never get in. And the caretaker was really mean. And we, you know, when we were teenagers, you know, and kids and stuff, they had a lot of cows, so we would, you know, go pick up shrooms, you know, and nastiest stuff. I was like, never doing this again. But one day we were out there, and we would get almost close enough to the house, and that's a long road. I don't know if you've ever been. It's a long road. And the caretaker actually came out and would chase us with his car and try to run us over. And he shot my friend in the butt with rock salt. And he's on our team, Brian. And so
I've been chased off with guns from the Grove Point. If you're going there, we're not sure how they do this. As you're going up, by the time you get to the gate, there's already someone coming down in a truck. And it's like, how did you know that we were coming? Because it's not, it's a long, windy, isolated thing. So there's a point of no return. And I don't know if that's true anymore, but back then there was a point where if you're driving down, if you don't turn around, you can't. You know, you're going to end up right at the gate, and you're going to have to like either back all the way out. But there's a truck coming with a guy with a gun, like brandishing a gun, and we're not even on property yet. But we can see him, and we're like, oh, nope, this isn't the place. This isn't the place. Back up.
Oh, yeah. He would come out with a shotgun. And, you know, we would party as teenagers right there in that area, a lot of times away from, you know, whatever was out there. You know, we'd go out there and party. But we were always fascinated with it. Like, we would get almost there sometimes, and then we'd get scared and run, like you said. Well, growing up in Georgetown and doing these things, we always were like, man, I really want to investigate. And we could never get permission. Well, finally, you know, we knew Great Dane owned it, and they're like, nope, no way, you know. So somehow I got a hold of the caretakers on the property. And they were like, yeah, we'd love to have y'all. Like,
really?
You know, how fantastic.
Because y'all grew up in Georgetown, we're going to allow it. So we were able to come and stay the whole night. And we got the weirdest stuff out there. It's beautiful out there, by the way. And if you go, make sure you carry not bug spray, but this stuff called bullseye. And this deer flies will eat you up out there.
The deer flies
will take you up and fly you off. There's a graveyard. So when you first come in, there's a graveyard to the right, and it's all African American. No one else can be buried there. You have to be a descendant from the plantation, you know, and all this. So we were out there, and we had, you know, couple of psychics was, you know, we had Tammy with us at the time. I don't know if you Tammy and Rich, you know, say, but
of course.
So they went out there with us, and she said that something was kept telling her to come this way, and she wouldn't. Well, then they found out why. That entity was trying to get her to come there. There was this huge alligator that was like waiting on them.
Oh, so, that's tricky.
You ever get
tricky.
Ask Tammy about that. She'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I'd love to have Tammy
Rich
on.
was freaking out, man. And so we investigated and stuff. The coolest thing, you talk about like trigger objects and stuff. We know, Johnny Mercer spent a lot of time there.
That's right.
So we would play his music in the parlor. And it's funny, I wish they were here, Courtney and Sarah, right? And Courtney is very different, right? She's not a Christian, put it that way. Sure. And Sarah is a Christian and a very, not a holy roller, but, and I put them together and they're like, no. But I do that a lot so that they see, hey, these people are cool, man. So I put them together. They were in there investigating. We had a little Boo Bear, right? Sure. And they were, doing their investigation and having a good time and getting a lot of stuff. And they said, can you touch the Boo Bear? Can you make it move? Well, it didn't just move. It picked up and went about 2 or 3 feet.
Holy cow.
And they freaked out.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And we're screaming and dancing and hugging each other. And it was like, whoa, so it was cool to see them. And that's when they bonded. And this was like 4 years ago.
Oh, that's amazing. For those listeners who don't know what a Boo Bear is, it's basically a REM pod inside a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
And basically it'll light up, it'll talk, it'll do all kinds of things.
It's kind of creepy.
It's very creepy.
Yeah.
I particularly don't like them because they creep me out. It's a cute little bear, but it will talk based on the electromagnetic fields that are happening around it. You can invite it. And the logic is that when you put like a REM pod out as a black cylinder, and it has very little to do with anybody who's lived anywhere in the past. You look at it and you're like, it looks like a weird electronic can of beans. So
that's a way to describe it.
The Boo Bear is supposed to be more inviting and something that is easier to explain. You say, do you see this bear? Touch its hand,
right.
Come close to it, and it's supposed to appeal to children ghosts as well. But that is what a Boo Bear is, and we were just talking in the last episode. When you have a spirit that can pick up a physical object, you are really dealing with an immense entity, something that is really present and has mastery of the environment that it's in. So that's really impressive.
Yeah, and we like using them not only for kids, but females that may have been abused.
Sure.
And then people that back then were in asylums and stuff. And they're not quite there. It's easier for a child's voice that's in the Boo Bear talk to them than somebody with a deep voice like myself that may scare them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you're right. The Boo Bear is an awesome tool.
It is a great tool. And it's fun to think of how tools have evolved just in the last 20 years. Just in the last 20 years, we started seeing the Oculus. We started seeing spirit boxes much more accessible. We started seeing all these things. And we're learning better ways to use them all the time, more functional ways to use them. I find we were talking about the Estes method earlier. And the Estes method, for those of you who don't know, is when you separate the person who's asking the questions from the person who's listening through headphones to a spirit box, and they're utilizing the fact that they cannot hear the question. Because when you hear a question, oftentimes you listen for the answer. Yeah. You're listening for anything that might suffice as the answer. And it's an amazingly effective thing. I've seen it used to amazing effect. We used it at the Lizzie Borden house recently, and it was just a wonderful, complete conversation. And somehow it becomes more complete than if you're just sitting there listening out in the open.
Yeah,
right.
And I think that was something that, and it was developed at the Stanley Hotel.
Yes.
For that purpose, for the fact that we know that our expectations and our anticipations can alter the evidence.
Yeah.
So by putting someone who can't hear the questions, in charge of just listening, I'm really pleased that that ghost hunting has become a little more, organized, because it was a Wild West. Back because I started a long time ago. I started when I was 5 years old as well. And I'm about to turn 52 this year. So, we have a lot of the same textual memories because I came here in the early 90s, in my early 20s. So a lot of Georgetown hadn't been built up quite as much as it is now. So there was still wilderness to be had in that area. And so basically you get your friends and like, let's go, run through that cemetery. Let's go, let's go break into that abandoned house. Let's go do these things, because there wasn't a method. No. You couldn't contact caretakers. Yep. We didn't think, I should talk to the caretakers. You're like, okay, when they're not looking, you're going to climb under this fence. I'm going to jump over this fence. Fences and me, we have a long relationship, because ghost hunting used to be, how long can you be in a place before you get caught?
Before you get caught. That's right.
Well, and I mean, in some places in the U.S., it still is kind of like that. Or if you go over to England and Scotland and all that, JT and I went into, although they do have a right to roam law, which is very nice because JT and I definitely did go into some places that I don't think we were meant to be in, but we went in them anyways. But on the topic of, utilizing different equipment for different spirits, I think that's an interesting point to bring up because a lot of times people go on investigations and they just throw all their equipment out and they're like, let's see what happens. But it is important to sometimes acknowledge the background of the entities and what they're going to relate to, especially with children. You see a lot of times children relate to like the cat balls a lot and things like that.
A lot of those.
Oh yeah, cat balls are so much fun just in general. JT, when we went to investigate the Gray Face Museum, JT loved the cat balls.
Cat balls were very exciting.
But
well, and that's another thing is even saying this red light.
Yeah.
The concept of red light sounds normal enough, but does it really translate? Does it come to a point where a spirit really understands it if they are pre-electricity? If they're you say red light and they're like, what do you mean? Again, and I always come back to this, ghosts don't have eyes, nor do they have ears, nor do they have vocal cords, nor do they have any of the things that we associate with how they develop senses. We're not certain of their limitations or their non-limitations. So a lot of times when we use visual cues or we use things like that, we're not taking into consideration that we don't know exactly what they're using as sensory. And that becomes, that conversation. Yeah. Because like even a bear gives it outline, gives it shape, gives it all these things. When you say light, it might be confusing. It might be, something. Because I always liked when people would demonstrate, when they say, could you come like this? Can you move this? So that there's something more tangible for an entity that may not experience the world the same way we do.
And sometimes certain people are more likely to get an interaction with the entity because, if you have a spirit who has deep trauma with men, they might not want to come up to a man on the investigation. But if you put a woman in the room alone with them, sometimes they're more likely to interact. Or a place I would love to investigate soon would be the Hamilton Turner Inn because there is a lot of common interactions that happen with pregnant women specifically. If we brought someone who was pregnant, it might give us a different,
Sidebar,
reaction.
Had you heard that? Did we talk about it?
Yes, about the possible abortion clinic. Yep. Yeah, because we had brought it up that I had, I'm mutual friends with a woman who runs a lot of the vintage markets and things like that in Savannah. And of course she knows my, interests and things. So she was like, I got to tell you about these places that I used to work in because she's worked in a lot of the bed and breakfasts and whatnot. And she was like, I had to quit the Hamilton Turner Inn because, had never had an interaction with any of the spirits before. I had heard the kids and stuff and nothing crazy until she got pregnant. And she didn't even know she was pregnant yet. And she would feel someone trying to push her down the stairs. Oh, wow. And so as she got, further along in her pregnancy, basically the interactions got more and more intense. She was like, someone's trying to kill me or hurt my baby and I can't work here anymore. And as soon as I told Chris that, he was like, what? He's like, wait, hold on.
Right, because I've never found the evidence necessary for the rest of that story, but it was a very intriguing story that had come to me years ago, over 20 years ago. Sorry, that's a terrible sidebar.
Yes.
Back to the Paranormal Society of Savannah. When did you form the Paranormal Society of Savannah?
So, me and my dad had been wanting to do this long before TV shows, like probably you guys, and we would call downtown and look for, hey, do you guys have ghost tours? And they was like, no, we don't. Right. This was in the 80s. Yeah. And, really they didn't start becoming popular into TV shows and stuff. So we had always kind of did our own little thing, me and my dad. We would go to where my great-great-grandfather, had been shot and killed and all that. And way out in the woods, I mean, you got to trample a mile in the woods and it's just overgrown, and we would go out there and take pictures with our little Kodak cameras, right? Yeah. And go to 1 hour photo and spend a fortune to get them back so we could see what we got. And we would get stuff like that, but then we would just do things here and there on our own. But when COVID kind of came around, I was like, you know, we had been talking about it forever. And I said, it's pretty much now or never. What if you get sick or I get sick or whatever? And we'll say, man, I really wish I'd have went ghost hunting with my dad, you know, with, you know, not a professional way, because we tell everybody, listen, we're not professionals, right? Sure. I don't know who is actually a professional. I say they're more experienced. We are always learning, right? Like
absolutely.
Me and my dad were Freemasons and Shriners, and I'm like, we are always learning more and more and more. And so that's what we're doing, is we're learning more and more and more. And we hope to maybe one day, you know, we don't call ourselves experts. Right. So I started just doing it, and I run the haunted house at, you know, the Ailey Shrine.
I was literally just talking about how wonderful the Ailey Shrine haunted house is, and what a program it was. You know, it was a really well-founded and well-thought-out program. So, yeah. We tried to really do the old-fashioned scares.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And, you know, finally we built it up to where, I mean, we were voted on some places like the #1 haunt in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And we were like, well, you know, you've been Netherworld and all those places. And they go, yeah, but anybody can go and buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of props.
Right, exactly.
Right? Animatronics and stuff. You guys do the old-fashioned. And I get it. So that's what we try to do. And we have a lot of fun with it. Yeah. Man. And so I've been doing it forever. Me and Miss Sharon, the mistress of the manor. Yeah. She's like 70. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Sharon. She's also a banana nana.
Yeah. Oh, one of the banana nanas.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and she went with us to Plains. And
fantastic.
She's like my best buddy. You know, we scare the crap out of people. We just love it. Yeah. And so, anyways, we've been doing that. We've been scaring people. I became a Shriner in '99, and we've been building haunted houses together ever since. Yeah, me and her.
Absolutely.
But going back is, so then I was doing something, and the kids always were like, "Hey, here comes the scare master," you know. And I was like, "Man, I don't know that." But they just kept doing it over the years. So when I was doing something, they're like, well, "What do you call yourself?" And I'm like, "I'm Patrick." And they were like, "No, you got to have a cool name." And I was like, I'm the Savannah Scare Master. That's
great.
So me and my dad were kind of doing that, and I would go to Bonaventure and stuff and tell stories, because I used to work for a company I don't want to mention, but we were down in the basement of the Regions Bank building, right? Oh, yeah. And remember when it used to be Morrison's and everything? Of course,
it was Morrison's, Piccadilly.
And that's where Gracie died and everything. So we were down in the basement, and I was always the last one to leave, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night a lot of times, and the weirdest things would happen down there. So I would tell them Gracie stories, like we would see a little girl down there a lot of times and everything. So anyways, I started doing that, and my brother-in-law was like, hey, don't forget about me. And I was like, man, my sister's real scaredy cat. I don't know how she's going to take to you doing this stuff, man. And he's military, and so it's like, all right, come on. So then my buddy I grew up with, not the one that got shot in the butt, but the other one that used to sneak in with us, was like, I got a drone. Do y'all need a drone? We were like, yeah, we need a drone.
Everybody needs a drone.
Yeah.
We were trying to find, we watch a lot of the shows, and we try to figure out, especially when there's a Savannah episode, like, we got to try to figure that out. So there was one where they were going into the catacombs, and they said it was in the woods. It was like Don't Fear the Woods or something like that show. I don't know if y'all have ever seen those shows. So we were like, well, let's try to figure it out. We thought it was off of President Street across from the homeless camp. And so we were down there trying to figure it out. Couldn't figure it out. And so we would wake up on the weekends at like 4 a.m., pick us up, what equipment we had, and just take off. And not come back till 10, 11 o'clock at night.
The way to do it, yeah.
Right? And we would do that, man, for like 6 months. And we were getting burned out. And we had a lot of people, they would, kind of know what we were doing. It's like, we want to do it, and we would take people with us. And then some people just, you got to click.
Right.
You got to have fun, you got to click. So, and they weren't working out. So I was like, why don't we hold a class? Because people say, well, how do you do this stuff? And we were like, well, we don't know, but we'll tell you what not to do. And don't do this and that. And that's how it started.
That's great.
And we were looking at people that were paying attention, not people playing on their phones the whole time. And at the end of the classes, they would say, how, can we join? And we put them on probation. And so we have an A team, a B team, and a C team. So the C team is 90-day probationary, and all this. And then the B teams, they're really getting experience. They're really helping us. And then the A team guys, they're the ones that we can call and immediately drop, especially if there's a child involved. Like they call us, we get a lot of those. We'll go out there and help them so that they're not sleeping with mom and dad every night. And
Right.
stuff like
Right.
that. So that's how it kind of started, and it just kind of kept growing and growing and growing.
That's fantastic.
And I'm a guy that I can't say no.
Yeah.
And like this weekend, like, Patrick, we got too many team members. And I'm like, but we're having fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, we don't get paid to do this. We're doing it because it's fun.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
so a lot of people think we're tour guides and stuff. And I'm like, no, we're not tour guides. We do it. We have the haunted coffee shop.
Yeah.
So we always wanted a headquarters.
Right.
Savannah's so expensive.
It is very.
And we would love to one day. So we were called out to Midway to investigate this coffee shop. It used to be a bank, Heritage Bank building.
Okay.
In Midway.
Yeah.
And so she's like, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in here. And we found out that there was a guy that was murdered at the Heritage Bank. He had came at night to do a night deposit box around the back of the bank.
Right.
And there was a young lady. This happened in 2002.
I was going to say, that was recent.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I remember.
So the lady that worked at one of the stores in Midway said, my boss comes and drops off this huge amount of money at this time. Mm-hmm. So there was 3 guys waiting. He pulls up to make his $22 deposit for his stepdaughter's phone. The 3 guys come out. He recognizes one of them. They shoot him 7 times, drag him over. In the back of the bank building, there's a big cross back there, like kind of memorializing him. And they think he kind of helps.
Oh, sure.
Well, we were doing an EVP session, and we got this name. We were like, can you tell us your name? And it said Ashley. And we had no idea who Ashley was. So we kind of told the owner, hey, all this is going. Several months later, she decides she doesn't want to do it anymore. She wants to get out of the business. We contacted the landlord, worked out a deal. So we came out there and was renovating and painting the walls black, Mm-hmm. And, I don't know about y'all, but Midway is a big Bible belt. And they were like, oh, they're in there worshiping Satan.
Of course.
And we got it all.
You do that in
man.
Savannah.
Yeah.
God, we got it all. And so we were in there doing our thing, and a lady pulls up, an older lady, and says, y'all be real careful. There's been some murders out here. We said, murders?
Murders.
And she said, well, it used to be a bank. We're like, yeah, we know. And we told her about who we knew,
right.
Michael. And then so she said, well, no, there was a young lady out here that was murdered. She was a bank teller. And her name was Ashley. And we were like, whoa. So
there
then our hearts just dropped. But we have a haunted museum in the, it's nothing like Grave. It's nothing like Ryan and Chloe's. Right. Yeah. And it's items when we go out of town and stuff, people know we're there and they'll say, take this.
Yeah.
And we're like, why? And they're like, sometimes they'll tell us, sometimes they won't.
We just don't want it.
Right.
Yeah. My trunk's
it.
full of those things.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we have a nice little museum that we put up there and for people to see if they're into it. But, we sell coffee. We don't have baristas. We have baristas. And, we sell local art, but it's not your typical art. Sure. We want, spooky art. We want, a nice lighthouse like Tybee. Okay, well, can you paint a ghost coming out of it?
Right.
Stuff? So, we wanted something different. And
no, it's brilliant.
It's not for everybody, especially Midway. And their Facebook page just lit up with us about, we had a church that does a service on us like every Sunday, and we found out that's why they weren't coming. So I just happened to get on their Facebook page and said, hey, bring in your Sunday programming for a free cup of coffee. Well, we thought it was cool, but the preacher did so.
Oh, sure.
But hey, we got new customers.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
That's right.
And I guess the lesson too, everyone listening, is follow your passion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Find like-minded people. Go out. There are no experts. That is a tried and true thing. We're all still learning.
Yes.
Everyone, no matter how skilled or how experienced a person is, there's always room to learn because we don't have the answers. If we did have the answers, we would see a lot more evidence, proof. We would have a much better dialogue about it. So, take everything you hear with a grain of salt, but also take it with an open mind and go out and investigate. If you're interested, there are ghost stories around you. Every town has the haunted house. Every town has that one place. And now people are more open than they've ever been, to the idea of investigation, of looking and finding. So by all means, if you're thinking that you're removed from the action, if you think that you're in a place that is inaccessible or doesn't have ghost stories, you'd be surprised.
I'm telling you, some of the craziest places that I've found is coming from people who lived in that area or grew up in that area. Like when we went to find the Greenbrier ghost grave and stuff, we would have never found the house where she was murdered if we hadn't ran into a guy who lived up the hill from the cemetery whose sister was taking care of her headstone and stuff like that. And he gave us the most West Virginian directions. You turn right at the holler and then you turn left at that one sign next to the Burger King and all that, things like that. And you're like trying to figure it out. But he was absolutely right. And it's so cool because that is something you can't find online. And, he gave us this whole history of the truth about her story because he grew up knowing about this and things like that. Because you can only find so much research that's correct online. So ask the people around you.
I never underestimate asking your friends. Just turn to somebody that you haven't talked a lot about and just say, do you have any ghost stories?
Right.
You'd be amazed at how many ghost stories people carry around with them, especially like those little ones that don't have anything other than I turned and there was a man in my house, and then when I looked back, he was gone. That moment, just that moment, becomes trivialized by time, but it's significant when you think about it.
Yeah.
So be open, talk to people. Just talk to people.
Just talk to them. That's what we do. We go to little towns and we go and frequent their shops. We buy merch. That way they don't think we're just coming in looking for ghosts, disturbing things, and leaving. Right. Like when we were in Plains, I know we probably spent $1,000 in that antique store. So they were happy to see us.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The little restaurant in there, they were like, whoa, you filled up every table. So we try to give back that way. Yeah. We also try to give back a little bit to their communities.
Yeah, don't be jerks.
Yeah, don't be jerks.
And that's one of the things of Andersonville Village. We was like, would you mind if we came in? He said, we used to. But there were people before y'all that just disrespected us and the town, so no, we can't.
Yeah,
right.
So. And that's just it. Don't spoil it for other people. Don't go in with all these ideas of what your influence on a place is going to be. Always think of the place first. Because people do. They come in and they really think that they're entitled to these experiences. We are not entitled to these experiences. We are not entitled to other people's property.
Right.
Or you can't just go running around. That was a terrible side effect of ghost hunting. At least when I was starting out, if I took my friends out ghost hunting and we go back and we tell people stories, the next step was vandalism.
Yeah.
Vandalism follows ghost hunting a lot. So you need to be very cautious. You need to be very aware that if you open up the door for people, some people, they just don't have a lot of respect for property and people. So be as respectful as possible.
One of the little tricks like we like to do is we get on, it's like, you're from Savannah or it's like, what's happening in Americas, so we'll get on there and join it and say, hey, does anyone know any ghost stories or anybody have any paranormal? And before you know it, those little 5 or 6, comment posts are 300 posts, and they're hitting us up personally. Yeah, if you guys come, I can take you to so-and-so. And so that's where we got a lot of it. No, and great. Then, like when we come into town, the first thing we do is we always call the visitor centers or the historical societies when we get there, because they love that you're coming and they want to tell you the truth about this house or that house.
You're going to get the best truth.
You're going to get exactly, and they love it. So that's what we kind of do. And it's like, hey, and we'll tell them, listen, we'll take your tour. Yeah, we would love to. We pay for it and everything. That's why we're here. We're here to learn, right? And then, we have investigators. We have one that's 12 that comes with her mom and dad, but she's very mature for her age. Sure. And we tell them, no cell phones, right? No candy, no, none of this. So, you bring your cell phone for your picture, no games. She is going to be the best ghost hunter ever.
Sure.
So,
well, you start them early.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I wanted to mention, Georgetown, because Georgetown has so many ghosts and stuff, and so many things people don't realize. So when you first come into Georgetown, there was like Food Line to the right. Yep. They used to be a farm, and we used to go there and get watermelons, and stuff from the guy. But there was a dirt road down Grove Point that led off. It was right before you get to the actual plantation and everything, the gate and everything. It was kind of before that, but it was to the left. It's right past that canal.
Yeah.
In those woods in there, a bunch of my buddies found out that there's a cemetery in here, and they led all the way back to 1780, 1790,
right.
and things, and a lot of them were slave markers and things or whatnot. So it was full of stuff, and we would go back there, and late at night, we were kids, and just get the crap scared out of us.
It's a very scary thing. Yeah.
And so as we got older, and now that we were doing this, we're like, we need to go back there. Well, they built houses on top of these graves, and they said they moved them, but they didn't. There's some kids out there playing football, just throwing footballs, and I was like, hey guys, have y'all ever seen anything out there? Like what? And I was like, I don't know, like ghosts or something like that. And they was like, yeah, hold on 1 second. They went and got their dad and came out, and he was like, yes, what's going on? And I said, well, there was a big graveyard out here, when I was a teenager from the 1700s and 1800s. And so, that was so cool.
Pausa rapidinho agora para falar de dica de ouro para os papais e mamães. Depois de experimentar a nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha, tudo ficou ainda melhor para o meu filho. É a única com canais em X que se adaptam aos movimentos, com 2 vezes proteção noturna e cintura elástica que se adapta ao corpinho do bebê, além de ser super fácil de colocar e tirar. Praticidade pura. Então guarda essa dica. Nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha. Bebê, estamos juntos nessa, mais do que nunca. Agora curta seu podcast.
And we were able to get some good little.
I want to say I remember when they were doing the building on that area, that they were just churning the ground. They were just churning it. So there were these huge mounds of dirt that they were churning up and then putting back down and churning up. And I was like, why are they doing that? And I was like, I think I know why they're doing that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. One of the, coolest places we investigated, you mentioned, was Mark's house, and one of our team members grew up with him when they were kids.
Oh, sure.
And her parents and his parents would hang out and just, party. Mark's dad was partier. So
he was,
and so was her parents. So they got along great. And so when we saw the magazine come out and somebody had sent it to us, our senior Sarah was like, I know Mark. I grew up with him when we were kids, and we knew each other all through high school and everything. And we were like, can you get us in? That's the one thing. She's like, I'll try. So she texted him, and he's like, hell yeah, when you want to come. So we were like, what?
Yeah, he's really open.
Yeah, that's very Mark.
That is one house I will say without a doubt I would never stay in by myself. Up in that top room to the left.
Oh yeah,
I watched y'all's podcast, and when he was here and was talking about somebody was saying going around, that was me.
Oh.
So when we came, we were walking up, we got dizzy. And, you get this heavy, you guys probably know. And it was weird. None of us really talked about it. There was 6 of us, but we all was feeling this. And I told them when we got out, I said, guys, I'm feeling sick. Right. I don't know what it is. And so when we were talking to Mark, I said, I felt like something was just going around and around the house, like Superman when he's trying to turn back the globe. Remember when bring back Lois Lane? I said, just kept, and I thought I was getting sick, but it's like it was looking for a way in. I said it was just going, and I don't know why. And then he told us why, and I said, okay, now it makes sense. So and one of the weird things is when we were doing our investigation, we've investigated 4 or 5 times. Before the movie came out, and he was like, don't put nothing out yet. We're like, oh no, we're not, we promised him, and we don't. That's why nobody's really seen a lot of our evidence.
Sure.
And so we were doing EVP sessions, and then later on we would come back to him, and he said, what'd you get? And I was like, well, it's the weirdest thing, man. I said, it keeps saying tunnel, and it keeps saying escape, and it says trap door. I don't know what's the world. And he just kind of, he gets us smiling, and we was like, what? And he's like, come here. And he shows it to us.
Yeah, there's a trap door.
And we were like, wow. But we did some experiments in there that was, wow. One of the weirdest things, like you mentioned, sometimes it likes men, sometimes it likes women. Mark's dad loved women. So Yeah, he liked women. Sorry, Mark. And so it didn't like me and Sarah doing the EVP sessions in the REM pods and everything. And so she said, do you want Patrick to leave? And as soon as it beep, so I left, and it was just, it did whatever she wanted. There's 3 canister lights over the vanity, right before you go to the bathroom in there. Right. And so she was like, can you make the middle light go out? And it would go out. But it's all connected to one. Right, so we call Mark in. Mark, is this connected to anything else? He goes, no. So, and Mark's standing there, and she was like, can you make the left one go out? Blink, go out. Can you make it come back on? And then she said she felt like it was Mark's dad that was in there.
Interesting.
And
that, I once had a conversation with Mark whether that was a possibility.
Yeah.
And he was pretty adamant that he would know the energy of his father. Mm-hmm. So it's fascinating because I think there are countless spirits there. Countless.
Right.
Like you talk about the girl, people have lots of experience with the girl, but there's the music that comes out of the unfinished room. There's all these other things.
The blue mist or whatever.
Yeah, unfinished room up there. We call it like this shadow of like a little girl. We're not sure what it was. This was last year.
Well, and beyond the bathroom that you're talking about, we're going on, and this is a very specific house here in Savannah. It's Mark McCullough's house, and there is a room that is like ground zero for paranormal activity, and I haven't really seen anybody talk about this in any of those things, but beyond the bathroom, there's a door that goes to a very slender, long, and disorienting closet.
Yes.
It's a weird closet. It's a strange closet, but when people talk of vortexes and they talk of things like that, that seems to be a big part of it. And we may actually end up investigating in the near future. I think Eni is in conversations with possibly getting one up and going.
Wow. One of the weird things, so, he's got his big studio upstairs. So we were all in there kind of going over evidence, and we were shooting some stuff, for him and everything and helping him out with stuff. And so I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. So I went to go to the bathroom, and I was already feeling weird. And I went on to the bathroom. When I came back, the rocking chair was in the corner, and it was rocking. And I was like, nice guy, way to go. And I was like, yeah. I said, if you're actually there, make it go faster. And it started rocking faster. And I was like, yeah. I went right back into the room. I was like, I thought y'all were doing that. And they said, no, we've been there the whole time. So now the coolest thing is when we were setting up, when we first got there, the first time we ever did it, we were in the kitchen at the kitchen table, and we were setting up our cameras and everything. And Mark was kind of leaned up there, and he was drinking water, and the lights were just like going on and off, on and off, on and off and stuff. And we were like, does this happen? Because Mark was just drinking water, talking to us, and he was like, no big deal. And we were like, what the world? And he was like, oh yeah, that happens. Just, but then not even a minute later, something pushed one of our investigators. Oof. And she landed like flat. And
oh my gosh.
She was like, I don't know what it is. I got pushed. And this is a no BS girl, good old country girl, tough. And she was like, I don't know, let me go catch my bearings and stuff. And so, that was one house, you want to mention location, that's one that stands out. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I would never stay in that house by myself.
Well, if we do manage a investigation there, we'll invite you back for a postmortem.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about our experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And see what we can get.
And I'm interested to see if we record in his house how that goes, because it seems like his ghosts are very technologically advanced.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Kalani, when we had Kalani on the show a couple weeks ago, he was talking about how his camera came on and he wasn't on. Yeah, and he wasn't even there. So, there's things like that. I know Marcus talked about, he's in the middle of self-tapes and things will happen with his cameras. You're talking about lots of electrical things going on. Mm-hmm. So we'll be interested to see if how that goes with the recording and stuff.
And Kalani was cool. He came out to the coffee shop. My cousins, they owned a Bell Mansion up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so they they're paranormal investigators
yeah.
as well, and I think he was up there like 4 days or something. They're coming down to Horror Fest.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
awesome.
Very cool.
yeah, it's going to be cool. Their experiences and everything. But he was real cool. Kalani was real cool, and we were kind of sharing stories about this. I'm like, hey, do you know about this? He goes, no, but I'm going back tonight, and I'll check it out. So we were like, yeah. So
Very cool.
yeah, it was really cool stuff. But we have a large team, and we kind of did that on purpose. And we have all mixed in races, all genders. We have Muslims. We have it doesn't matter, different sexes, interracial couples. We don't care because, like we say, the ghosts don't care. And we teach that, and we also teach. Listen, don't get upset if these other paranormal teams are like, hey, this is our town, or this is our. I'm like, you don't own the ghost, man.
Right.
So, but we're really nice, and we just politely say, hey, we get it. You feel like, hey, we're coming into your town. Just be nice and just say, hey, we get it. Share information, and you could probably learn something from another team. So,
Always.
And we just have so much fun.
That's the important thing. That is
Absolutely.
absolutely the important thing. Do this because you enjoy it. If it's a slog, if you don't enjoy it, why are you
Right.
doing it? Don't do it.
We have this ritual that we do, like once the investigation is over, we eat Mexican. And because it's cheap, for one thing, we're out and it's good. And then we have margaritas, and we just talk about who got scared, or who might have passed gas on the EVP recorder, like who did that, because you're sitting there and all of a sudden you see just put them, and you're like, really? So, we're very serious on investigations, but when you've been doing it for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you got to pass the
And
time.
nothing
Right.
is going
Right.
on. And we tell them, listen, it's not like TV.
No,
it's
not at
very
all.
boring.
No.
They cram 20 minutes worth of whatever evidence they supposedly get into an hour show.
Right.
The other time is them walking around the town or acting goofy or whatever. They have to fill that hour. So,
Right.
and that's what we tell them. They would go on ghost hunts with us and stuff and say, this is boring. And we're like,
Well,
yeah.
yes, of course it is.
And sometimes you don't get anything, right?
Right.
It's
And
true.
sometimes you just turn. I tell people it's like fishing, right?
Yeah.
You like to go fishing. You ever go fishing, you don't catch anything.
Yeah.
That bobber just sits there or whatever, and you don't catch anything. But what do? You go back because, hey, it wasn't your day, or you go to another spot, right? They're not biting here, so I'm going to go here. And that's what we like to do. And we have a good time with it.
Excellent.
We go out
Good.
it gets people out of the house. It gets the kids out of the house. That want to go. The teenagers, they're not playing video games.
Right.
They're learning history, and they can be themselves around us. So
And I always tell people too, ghosts aren't on the payroll. So you are not guaranteed to have an interaction because, there's a number of reasons why. But it does matter, though, to have a group that you enjoy being with and want to hang out for that amount of time with. So that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear about some of the work y'all have been doing, and I'm excited to hear about future investigations that
We'll have
you
to make
do.
the road trip down to haunted grounds. That
Absolutely.
sounds awesome.
Yes.
Sounds fantastic.
Oh, I was excited when, they asked, hey, would you like to come? I was like, absolutely. We watch it. And on our TVs in the shop, a lot of times we'll have podcasts playing. We have you guys' podcast is playing there. The volume is kind of low, but they see it. And a lot of people ask, hey, who are these guys or whatever? And we tell them. So we're all about sharing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And just, again, we keep saying having fun. And that's what we do. We have so much fun. We laugh a lot, especially, they say I'm the biggest chicken on the team, and they are right.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to snakes. That's why I don't like to investigate in the summertime, but I do. There's so many places that we've been. I'm sure y'all have been, but we like hitting the places nobody knows about.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows about the Pirate's House. Everybody knows about Sword Weed. Everybody knows about Marshall House. Everybody knows about those. We like going to the places nobody knows about, right? Like Mark's house and things like that. So that it's not drummed up for either business or ratings or
Right.
anything
Right.
like that. Not
Right.
saying
Yep.
it's not haunted or whatnot, but to me,
But it's been played out.
it's it's like an old fishing spot you go to. And like, man, I used to tear them up here. Well, everybody knows about the spot now,
Right.
So,
JT's
it's one of
nodding.
those things. Yeah, and we're always looking to go out of town.
Sure.
We love it. We have our own general liability insurance. A lot of people
smart,
Yes.
very smart.
So we do that so that it protects us, right? One of our team members accidentally, in the dark bumps in this $10,000 vase. Well, we only pay the deductible. Hopefully,
Right.
Ideally.
Yeah,
Yes.
we hope. So, and that also helps
But that
us.
just shows a level of responsibility.
Yeah, and
more
that
than anything
gets
else.
us into places that normally nope, like the place down in Clay County. And, between Jacksonville and St. Augustine, first thing they ask is, do you guys have general liability? Yes, we do. Yeah, well, absolutely. Y'all come on. So it helps get you into places. And it also shows, hey, these guys are pretty serious about what they do.
Right.
They take it seriously. They're not going to come in here and, graffiti the walls or tear up stuff or kick over tombstones or whatever it is.
Right. They're not going to take souvenirs.
Yeah. So if they do, we've got their COI and there we go. So we highly recommend that. There's a lot we have a checkoff list that we have everybody check off before they go get your bug spray. Do we have our first aid kit? Do we have water? Right.
Water.
Hydrate because, and then, there's so many things that we check off. One of the things we teach too is the paranormal hangover, right? That's where, you get somebody that's really going to, you can use my energy. And we're like, are you crazy?
Right.
Be cool. Or like, you can use all our energy. Put him back in the car. But so for example, 1790, we were in the room and was just getting crazy energy, right? There was 4 of us there and it was going off like crazy. And the next morning we're leaving and we just never felt this way. And we were just hurting. And
Sore. Yeah, sure.
And we reached out to, a couple more experienced paranormal teams and they were like, man, you got a paranormal hangover. And we're like, but we don't drink during investigation. He said, no, man. It used your energy, right? So we learn from that, and that's what we tell people. If one person wants to do, hey, that's you, man. We'll make sure you get home. We'll Uber, but don't do that with us. And I think that's what happened. It used all our energy, and we were getting the stuff that we were.
Wow.
So,
well, thank you so much, Patrick, for being here today. Honestly, this has been a really fascinating conversation. And like I said, I'm really happy to hear about some of the investigative work you guys have done in your evidence. So if you guys don't already follow them, what's your social media that people can go find you?
You can go to savannahscare.com.
Okay.
All our information is there, all our social media pages. We're not really big on YouTube and stuff. We do a lot of Facebook. We're old, so we don't know about TikTok and stuff. But we do have those pages, but Facebook's probably going to be the best. Paranormal Society of Savannah. Awesome. And then Haunted Grounds.
And Haunted
Coffee.
Grounds,
yes.
Right, absolutely.
Absolutely. So definitely go check them out. And maybe if we do that investigation at Mark's house, we will do a postmortem episode. I think that would be a really fun thing to do.
Yeah,
maybe we'll do a remote.
Right.
Haunted Grounds.
Absolutely.
We can do that.
Yeah. So thank you guys again for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you don't already follow us on TikTok, you can find us under Haunted City Podcast. That's our name on all of the various social media platforms. You can find us on hauntedcitypodcast.com. So if you want to find merch or links to our Patreon to become a Parajunkie, it's all going to be there. But thank you guys again. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.